So this story, we are going to discuss A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. I'm sure that after you read this story, you are very confused because of the way this was written. And so I'm going to elaborate on it and tell you what's going on. And hopefully that'll steer you to be able to appropriately answer the discussion questions, make more sense of this story. And so let's start here. It's a little bit hard to follow because it jumps around and you are taken into flashbacks. Some of it's past, some of it's present. And William Faulkner doesn't come out and say, oh, hold on, we are going to flash back here. And so you just have to interpret that upon your reading and the context clues and the information that you're giving. It is your job to decipher what's a flashback and what's not. So we have these flashbacks going on, but let's talk about what happens in the story without the flashback. So we're going to save, because it kind of starts the flashback about the funeral, but let's start when Emily was alive. And so let's talk about Emily in her younger years. And we're given information that she lived with her dad, and she was very fancy. She wore the dresses, the debutante of the ball, the guys lining up to be with her, but yet her father shot them all away and said, nope, 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 Emily, you are too good for them, too good for them, too good for them. So she never married. Now, in this time period, it was written in the 1930s, and getting married was expected. And that's what fathers wanted. That was an honor to have your wife, to have your daughter be married off to a good man. It was where the man would come and ask the father for a hand in marriage. And that was kind of the family's goal, was to get the daughter a good husband to move on out of the house and to establish a life of their own. And they usually did this at a very young age. And so I want you to think about that. Your discussion questions, you're going to discuss the relationship she had with her dad, Toby and Homer. And so I really want you to think about the relationship with their father, with her father, to really fully analyze what's going on here. And I want you to come up with your own interpretations. But after this, listening to this, I think you'll have a good idea. At least help shape some of your ideas, maybe support some of your ideas. But so her dad keeps telling her that, no, no, no. And so she lives a very lonely life. And so we see as she gets older, she becomes, not very beautiful anymore. They describe her as plump, obese for her body style, and kind of starts falling apart. But so she ends up living a life alone and kind of the spinster of the town. But she wasn't always like that. She had a job. She used to paint china painting lessons back when she was younger. And so if you think about this fact alone, it does show us that she liked to be around people and that she did have a skill, because we can gather from everything else with this story that she didn't do it for the money. She did it for socialization. She did it to be around people and to demonstrate the skill that she had. So this shows her that when she was younger, she was not so much like she was. So I want you to think about, what do you think shaped her to become this person whom she became? The very second line of the story, it talks about paying respects to a fallen monument. Now, I want to talk about that in a couple of different ways, because if you think about their status in the town, her and her dad's status of the town was very great. They were highly respected. They were looked highly upon. They had a very high social class. They had a lot of money. All the guys wanted to date her. All the girls wanted to look like her and be like her. And so they were like this monument. And over time and over everything that happened, she just fell. It could also be symbolic of her fallen mental state. Also, the third thing I want to say about this fallen monument, because it's a very big metaphor for her house. It describes the house, and obviously it's a very big house, but it describes this house as, it's falling apart, it's deteriorating. And so if you think about it, it says it's the only house in the neighborhood that looks like that. So everything else in the town has changed. It's progressed, it's been updated, but her house has not. She has not updated the house, and so it's falling apart. So you can also talk about, relate that, and it could be a metaphor. The house can be a metaphor for Emily's life. So the house is falling apart. It once was grand and beautiful, and everybody looked at it and wanted to be like that. But now the house is the kind of house you see on scary movies with the old witch living in it, and everybody runs from it. And so both of these entities, the house and Miss Emily, they have deteriorated in a very, very bad way. So she meets this guy named Homer, and he's in town to pave some sidewalks. And so it even gives us an indication that he likes boys, and they start courting, so they're dating. So let's talk about the depth of their relationship. Not too much, because you're going to describe that in the discussion, but they start dating and courting, and I want you to think about their relationship and, was it deep? Was it not deep? And so that's something that I want you to think of. But they start dating, and then some cousins come into town, and they don't like Homer, and they tell her, you are too good for him. He is not good enough to be with you. And this is what she's been told her whole life. And now here she is, old, overweight, lonely, a spinster, a house that's falling apart, somebody who lives a life of solitude, desolation, and here she still has her family telling her, you are too good for them. So that really gives us an indication of the mindset of her family, that they were way up here and anybody else was way down here. And so do you think that stopped Emily from seeing Homer? But do you think that she should have stopped based on somebody telling her that he wasn't good enough for her? If I were to answer that, I would say no, because just going back to the golden rule, you shouldn't think that anybody is below you, and shouldn't choose to date or be friends with anybody because you think they're not good enough for you. And so, we can gather that she did not do that. The cousins are not in the story very long. They're very minor characters, along with somebody else. We're going to get to that in a moment, her servant Toby. But, so she goes to the store and she buys this toilet set, has his initials engraved on it. Now, there's two ways that we can think about this. One, it's a wedding gift because she thinks she's going to get married and she's buying him this nice gift and is thinking, oh, my soon-to-be husband is going to love this. Or do you think it could be a cover-up for what she's planning on doing? Just think about that. She also goes to the store to buy arsenic. And when she goes in to buy the arsenic, the law was you had to give a reason for buying the arsenic. The pharmacist says, why are you buying this? And she just stares at him, blank stare. And he just grabs a bottle, writes 4 rats on it. Could Homer be a rat? Think about it. So she takes the arsenic home. This goes into the question of, in your discussion, do you think that the townspeople respected her or feared her? If you go back to the beginning of the story, the townspeople came to her house because she owed taxes. And her response was, no, not paying it. So think about what would happen if that happened to you. If you got a bill in the mail from the IRS or even the electric company and you just mailed it back, nope, not going to pay it. Do you think they're going to come to you and say, okay, that's all right? No. She said it was because of her father and all of these reasons. But if you think logically about the situation, what do you think the reasons really were that she was not forced to pay those taxes? Another thing to think about when you're answering this question on whether it was fear or respect is the way that they sprinkled the lime around the house when they started to smell something. If you respect and know your neighbors well, and if you're friendly with your neighbors, would you do that? Would you sprinkle it around their house just out of respect so you don't embarrass them? Or would you knock on their house, and discuss it with them? Ask them if they're okay. So that's where I want you to determine that based on those 3 things. So think about the way the tax people, kind of just ignored that, the way they sprinkled the lime around the house, and then the pharmacist just, okay, here you go, here's some poison. With no questions asked. So was that fear or respect? And so let's elaborate on that. But we get to the end of the story, and she obviously has passed away, and we've had some flashbacks in there, and all the townspeople come, and this could be another justification in your answer for the respect or fear. But they go up in the house, and they open a room that hasn't been opened in a long time. There they find the body of a man in a nightdress. His clothes were sitting up, all nice and pretty on a chair. There was the toilet set. And she, obviously had been laying right next to them because they find a single gray hair in the pillow with the, shape of a head in the pillow. And so I want you to tell me what your thoughts were about the ending. What can you interpret from the ending of this story here? And so in the discussion, you're going to be discussing the relationship. What do you think it was like? And really elaborate on it with Homer, with her father, and then we have to discuss Toby. Toby was the servant, and he was around for years and years and years, and he stayed. If he really wanted to leave that house, don't you think he could have? He could have easily overpowered her. He could have easily just walked out of the house, and she might not have even noticed. And so, but he stayed. And after he let the people in the house, he just walked out, never to return again. Why do you think that is? And so I want you to use you are not given a lot of information about Toby, but think about what you are given. And what do you think their relationship was like? Did he respect her? Did he fear her? Why did he stay? So those are the things you're going to think about in the discussion. And then I also want you to think about the title, A Rose for Emily. So, we have this in the story, but, why do you think that this is called A Rose for Emily? And this can go back and tie in with either the respect or the fear aspect of it. And so I'm interested in your answers with this. I think this is a really interesting story to get into. So I will be hearing from you guys all really soon in the discussion.